Welcome to a special episode of America's Next Top Prospect, 2023 Bowman Chrome. In this episode, we're going to go over the top 23 Bowman Chrome chases. Bowman Chrome was released September 13th. We're going to talk about some sneaky teams to buy, some low prospects, some high prospects. Bowman Chrome is more about international stars. So we don't have a lot of data, but we're going to dig as deep as we can. Enjoy. Welcome. Special episode. We finally got a checklist. 23 Bowman Chrome releases 9/13. We've got a full checklist. It's a large one. There's a lot to dive into, but let's go over the differences. We got Bowman Hobby, which is a master box that has 2 mini boxes. Each mini box has 1 auto. In those boxes, you can pull the likes of rookies, Gunnar Henderson, Adley, and then you can also pull prospects like Salas. And this year, they've added in legends like Clemente, Ruth, and I believe we have one more legend. Johnny Bench is in this set. The other option that you have is HTA boxes. HTA is an old term they used many years ago. It stands for, I believe it's home turf advantage or something along those lines. And they sort of loaded boxes a little bit with your city's team. That is not the case anymore. Basically, what it stands for is you're going to get 3 autos in those boxes and 3 autos only. There are no base cards. There are no other inserts. Those autos could be different colors, but it is 3 cards. HGA tends to be a little more expensive than Hobby. Autos are the chase. Autos are what sell. You also have exclusive parallels to both sets. HTA, you have something like the Blue Choice autos, or Mojo, some like to call it. They also have Orange Shimmer, Green Shimmer, and a few other parallels that are exclusive. And Hobby, same thing. They have a few exclusive inserts. The Aqua Pink Vapor Parallel is a Hobby only. The Yellow Orange Vapor Wave Parallel. Yes, I know it sounds ridiculous, but this is a thing. And Rookie Color Run Variation, which I believe is new this year, numbered to 23, is Hobby only. And short print variations are Hobby only. Again, most of those don't have autos, hence why they're Hobby exclusive. So it matters what you want. If you're looking for just autos, HTA is your play. You will get autos. It's a big checklist, so you could have some really bad HTA boxes and cases. You could have some really great ones. Once again this year, Bowman has said, we don't care about True Blue. True Blue is not in the set. Bobby is not happy, and I agree with that statement. I think I've accepted it. But last year, there was a lot of blowback. So we've got the HJ choice, and we've got the Blue Shimmer, essentially. And that's it. I'm not sure why they do that, but here we are. Bobby, do you have a preference, Hobby or HTA, or do you just not care and you just want to rip some wax?
I rip regular Hobby. I'm a big fan of non-auto color. The biggest card that I've ever pulled from a Bowman set was a non-auto Superfractor. And I never would have pulled it if I was pulling HTA. So, I just like the HTAs, like you said, you run the risk of all 3 of your autos being bad, and it's like you open it in like 30 seconds, and all that money's just gone. Like at least when I go through the packs, I can find some stuff that I like.
I opened 1 HTA last year, and I pulled a Dylan Dodd Gold. You did 2, Landman? I did a Dylan Dodd Gold and 2 nobodies. And Dodd, I only got money on Dodd because his first game or 2, was it? Because Bobby's a Brave. He looked great.
Yeah.
Sold it to some Braves fan, and then Dodd decided to stop playing baseball essentially and not hit and not get any outs. Adam bought 2 HTA last year. Landman over there. I think this might be the first time I said his first name, guys. Land, what do you prefer? I know you've obviously opened HTA, but maybe those turned you off and you're back to Hobby World.
Yeah, the biggest card I actually hit was from a Bowman Chrome Hobby box last year. I think you actually remember the story. I did a case break with you of the Nationals chasing the Vaquero in house. And I think I hit 1 Vaquero Chrome first and 5 other total cards, no firsts, no inserts. So I was sitting in the parking lot and I said, if you don't hit me anything, and it was a fire case. And there were just literally no Nationals cards. And then I went into my local card shop, actually the Dallas Card Show shop, and bought a box and hit a true orange auto of Brady House.
Orange, that's right.
Damn.
So you'll see the one thing I'll say about Bowman, and as a breaker, I have 5 cases coming, and they'll probably get ripped pretty quick. I did about 5 last year. I did 10 in draft. A lot of cases, whether you like it or not, seem to be team heavy. When you start the run on one team or one player, it tends to, for whatever reason, I'm not saying Bowman, I'm not saying Topps, I'm not saying anything shady is going on, but it tends to run the same. You tend to get, I don't want to say duplicates, but you tend to get duplicate teams at least.
It can be
And
duplicate.
that's what happens. You tend to get duplicates too, but Landman could admit I did a lot of breaks for draft, and he did a lot of chasing in Toronto. And besides, I think the first case, we had like one auto. Besides that, it wasn't even color, essentially. We had some maybe some refractors, but dead. But then you open a second case somewhere else, and you've got Josh and what's his name popping up in every pack. So it's this weird print run. I would love to go watch the process and see why that happens, but it does. So obviously, join breaks at your own risk. Understand that you're taking a chance. If you're opening your own box, you're taking the same chance, just very differently. But we'll dig in. It's a big checklist. We can't go over, I believe it's about 132 autos. We're going to go over a good portion of our top 10, our top 15, and then we'll talk about teams. There are some sneaky teams. I have priced out my break, so we do have an understanding of where teams fall. We got tier 1, tier 2. I think we got down to tier 5 almost. Poor Chicago White Sox. We will briefly touch on them. But if you're a White Sox fan, congratulations. You cannot pull anything, but you will not be spending a lot of money, and you can get some cards. So let's dive in. We all have the same number 1 chase. I think everybody, for the most part, have the same number 1 chase. He is Ethan Salas. We did talk about him in one of our episodes. Catcher over in San Diego. He is in AAA, I believe it is, at 17. Double A, at 17. He's young. People love him. He is a catcher. The one thing I know, Bobby actually give us the number. Bobby was pulling the batter autos. And how many catchers do we have in the set right now?
So there's a couple guys that are listed as catchers that might not be catchers long term, but as far as guys who have catcher listed as one of their positions, I went through the checklist. I took out all the pitchers because I know that a lot of people don't chase pitchers, but there are 113 hitter autos and 23 of them play catcher.
So we're looking at about 15 to 20%.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Which is not, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously you have, Salas 1. So, I mean, the number 1 chase is already a catcher, but I think there's going to be a couple of them that are catchers. And I'm not sure how the hobby will react to that. They tend to hate on catchers a little bit.
The number 1 and 2 actually might be catchers, but let's talk. We talked about Salas, so I don't want to get too far into actually probably the top 2 guys, which is Salas and Basallo. Basallo is a auto only guy. He will not have a base card in the set, so if you see a Basallo, it will be autographed. What you'll see is players that have had cards in other sets, or certain players that did just enough time to produce for whatever reason, will be auto only. I don't have the number in front of me, but there is a good amount of auto onlys. Which do change your chase. So please go to Beckett.com or Cardboard Connection. Check your checklist before you buy into a break or before you buy a box. Some players, like I think it's Walcott, is no autos. He will have colored cards, and we'll get into the fun Bowman maze of what it means for his future in the Bowman world. But we got Salas and Basallo. We've talked about plenty. If you have not listened, they are both in our first or second episode when we go over our top 10 catchers. Landman was really big on Basallo. We were all pretty big on Salas, so I'm not going to dig too deep into them. But next up, we're going to go to the Dodger system, and that is Vargas. We do have 2 Vargases, so it's Jandry. Is that right? Jandry Vargas of the Los Angeles Dodgers is easily a top 3 chase. I think Landman, you want to touch on him. I if I'm not mistaken, he's your number 2 from what you said. He is a shortstop, listed as a shortstop. Tell me about him. I got his stats. He's got some great stats, so he's going to be a fun chase.
So I think you really have to preface any conversation really about Bowman Chrome prospects in that you're really getting limited looks at these guys unless you are actually an international scout or in a front office and in that department, because I can say personally, a lot of these guys, even when I was working with the Blue Jays, I didn't really know a lot of even so much our international guys because you're very focused on the draft It's overseas. It's a completely different department, and there's data, but you don't really have a reason to use it. Outside of an organization, you are basically at the mercy of whatever you can find on YouTube, and it's very limited, or reports you can get of guys who have seen them firsthand. And then, they're going to have their own bias and then their own abilities anyways to kind of know what they're seeing. And they should know what they're doing, but...
And that is one thing I didn't touch on, so people know. Bowman Chrome is international. Bowman Draft is draft. Bowman is usually leftover draft, not in a bad way, just get some extra money out of the consumer. But Bowman Chrome is the international product. Some of these guys have still not taken a bat that we would have talked about. We're going to try to talk about players that we do have at least some data on. And we have a minor video. This is probably, to me, the hardest product to go after. Solace is an easy one. He would probably be the top chase in almost any year of any Bowman product within reason, or he'd be a top 5 easily. The rest are sort of like, small sample size, crapshoot. We're going for it. We're looking at 300 at bats as a professional, maybe. I think we got Justin Henry for the Braves. He's been traded already to Detroit. I believe he's got a bunch of bats, and he's finally got an auto here. But outside that, this is a very small sample size. So, let's talk Vargas. Let's talk Dodgers. Prime position, prime organization, great development. He's got that OBP that I love. So tell me about him, Landman.
So just one other thing to piggyback off that. It's not just the limited sample size. It's the quality of the sample size. Because this is not stateside baseball. This is Dominican Summer League like type stuff. So they're really, really young. It's their first taste. Most of the guys who are in these leagues are not coming over to the States to play professionally, even minor league ball. So it's the numbers that you get, you really have to take with, like, when I say a grain of salt, I mean a block of salt. Like, I mean, just the whole thing. You get sushi, you get it on that block, throw the sushi off and use that block. Like, this is just raw data, and it doesn't necessarily translate as well. I know some people have done some really good work into analyzing it and seeing what that would equate to. But that's the thing about Bowman Chrome. And I know you want to talk about Vargas. I just want to, for the people who don't know, just reiterate and stress this, that it is actually a cheaper product than Bowman and Bowman Draft. So you get a cheaper entry point, especially if you want to just go get into a break or buy a hobby box. But the risk in terms of the prospects, very, very high. So, I think 2022 is going to age pretty well. It might age very well. 2021 has already aged very badly. 2020
unbuyable almost.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not shot, but like there's a lot of guys who have regressed. But you go to 2020, you've got Michael Harris, Luis Angel Acuna, Luis Matos just got promoted.
I think Luis Roberts is in there.
I think he had rookies, but then I don't know if he has
rookies
because
we pulled Weaver, shout out, pulled a Lou Bob Red Auto out of 2020. And so 2022 is Churio, who's a top 5 prospect, not just international prospect now.
Right. He was 20,
but he was a transfer over. Yeah.
And then we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. But Francisco Alvarez, 2019, you have Alexander Canario, who just got promoted. I mean, there's some really, really good guys in here, but it's just there needs to be a little bit of wait and see. That being said, I know I've dragged it out long enough, so we'll get into it.
Let's do it, because everyone should know. Take it at your risk. This is very different than Bowman Draft. This is the opposite side of the spectrum. This is literally, Bowman Draft. 90% of the guys we've watched on TV or have the opportunity, or at least have ample YouTube video. This is like, not only is YouTube video sparse, it's usually bad quality.
Yeah. So
let's talk Vargas. Let's get the Dodgers wet, because we talk about this a lot. We talk about organizations and what they mean. And you'll see a lot on this list, honestly, from the teams that my tops are a lot of teams that produce well. I don't have any Angels for a reason.
Yeah, the Dodgers are a top. I mean, they may be the best team in terms of developing international talent, really talent in general. But they're a very, very successful international program and a department. And Joandri Vargas is extremely exciting. We had DePaula, who just came out of 23, and now we're going to Vargas. And I don't really think there might be even a drop off. He might be better than DePaula. Now, again,
I like him more.
Well, he plays the premium position. Has a lot of. I mean, DePaula had a lot of success too, but he's got the tools. I only have limited data on him right now, beyond why we said that. But he's walking almost as much as he's striking out. I think it's one strikeout versus walk, right, Bob?
Yeah, 0.97.
Yeah,
walk to K.
He's got a 330 average, 7 homers, 19 stolen bases. I mean, these are incredible numbers. But again, he's the level of competition he's playing against. You have to, like I said, take it with that block of salt because he's just head and shoulders better than the guys he's playing against.
I agree. I mean, 423 OBP right now. But again, only 175 at bats. So we're talking, most of the guys we talk about on the regular podcast are in the 300 range at this point in their careers, unless they were just drafted. So it is a small sample size. Where do you stand on Vargas? I know he's high on your list, Bobby. He's easily, the Dodgers are a tier 2 team. There is only one tier 1 team to me, price wise, and that is the Padres this year. In the next tier, we will get into Dodgers and the Mariners, I believe. You could talk Baltimore, you could talk Diamondbacks, and I believe you could also talk about the Braves in there. But let's talk Dodgers, let's talk Vargas, and then we'll get into some other juicy prospects.
Yeah, I like Vargas. Land pretty much hit it. Good hit tool. He's big, 6'4" shortstop. Exciting tool package and everything. Got a chance for above average hit and maybe plus power because he's so big. 149 WRC plus in the limited data we have in the Dominican Summer League. I mean, everything looks good. 19 stolen bases in 48 games. Like, he doesn't project to be super fast, but I think he knows when to take his chances. Like Lance said, the hardest thing with these guys is going to be the Dominican Summer League data. It's not only is there not a lot of it, but like he said, the competition is different. It's very hard to judge. I see all the time, it happened in 21 Chrome. There will always be guys who you see their Dominican Summer League numbers that you're like, wow, this guy's legit. And they come to they come to the complex league and they flop. And then you have guys who can't hit in the Dominican Summer League and they come to the complex league and they light it on fire. I almost can't even look at Dominican Summer League data because it's so inconsistent. I mean, when you looked at 21 Chrome when it came out, people were talking Christian Hernandez, Carlos Colmenares, Luis Rodriguez. Those guys they're all terrible. None of them are good prospects, So it's like you see this data and you're like, I don't want to say they're terrible. They're better than I am, But how much
they're
they're
MLB
yeah,
terrible.
but how much money people put into Christian Hernandez? You see a lot of these DSL stats that like pop off the page. We're gonna get into a guy who has a WRC plus this year that's like just insane. But like Lan said, it's hard to trust, what they do over there. It's just a totally different game.
And so that's Vargas for the Dodgers. The other guy we're gonna bleed into this one. We've talked about him a little bit, and we're not gonna talk much about him, but it's gonna help me bring up my next topic when it comes to Bowman. Is Zach Geloff. Zach had color in 23 Bowman. He now has an auto in 23 Bowman Chrome. He will, if I'm not mistaken, he's another auto-only character in the name of the game. And so Bowman does this thing sometimes where they drop the first. If it doesn't if it transfers over to a new product, Zach is one of the ones that will have color first in regular Bowman, and he's going to have auto first in Bowman Chrome. The flip side, which we'll get into actually right now, we might as well, is Walcott. Walcott has no autos here. Walcott, who is, I think he was in Landman's top 25, if I'm not mistaken, overall. Walcott has color here. His next opportunity would be 24 draft or 24 Bowman. Because it's a new set, it's a new year, it's a new cycle, they will drop that first logo, and he will most likely, unless Bowman does Bowman stuff, Walcott will most likely not have a first auto in any set across the board. That will match the likes of Jackson Merrill and Brady House. Brady House, as we talked about, was one of the bigger ones. He was probably a top 5 chase in 21 draft as a player, but because he doesn't have autos, the price of them is lower. So you'll see Texas as a lower chase, but because he doesn't have autos, his color will sell very well. Again, we're not going to talk about Walcott. We've talked about him, and we will talk about him coming up in the next few weeks when we go to outfield. Shortstop, sorry. I was looking at someone else when I said outfield. Shortstop, which is in 2 weeks. But that's the Bowman. So if you understand that if this is their first and there's no auto and it's just a base card, they will not have a first auto most likely. So there is a little extra value in the color than anybody else because it's short printed, if you will. There's no better way to describe it, really. But Landman, speak on it because I know you're really disappointed in this one. I know this one hurts a lot of Ranger people. This was one of the first thing everyone said after everyone screamed, Salas made it. The second was Walcott didn't? So tell us.
Yeah, well, so full disclosure, he's not in my top 25. I think he was he was in the top 30. But
okay.
My number 7 prospect did get promoted today. And we're gonna have a little more data about this when this drops, but Jordan Lawler, just saying.
Sure did.
Lawler has been, this is a side note for the podcast. Lawler has been crushing AAA since the moment he was called up. I mean, it felt like a 2 home run game every day on some point. And Arizona is right there in the wild card spot. And I'm honestly, the more this happens, the more I'm looking forward to doing a playoff breakdown before the playoffs with our predictions. Because teams like Arizona really get me excited because they've got a great future. And if Lawler pans out, with Kelly doing well there, Gallen's doing well there, they're a fun team. But Lawler did get the call up today, so congratulations, Lawler.
Congratulations to Lawler. Meet of my bids on cards.
They gone, but I know Jeremiah, one of my boys on Twitter, Jeremiah, I believe he just bought a gold.
Did he?
PSA 10. Yeah. He made a trade recently, I believe, and he pulled in and he sent me a picture of it today or yesterday, right before the call up. He's like, check this out. And then he got called up within like 24 hours. And I'm like, woo! Good time to have Lawler cards.
I've got the Dallas cards I'm getting ready for this weekend, and will have passed. But I told him whatever I come out of with that, I might be hitting him up. I don't know. It may be too late now, though. That was my game plan. But anyways,
but so that's where we are with guys like Walcott. He's probably the biggest one to sort of get screwed in a weird way.
Yeah.
I don't know the reasoning. I don't know if you have any insight on why this happens. I don't know if it's timing. I don't know if it's just messing with people.
Sometimes it's just about the individual and the getting into the details, and because these are players, you have to coordinate this, and it's not always the easiest thing. I mean, I don't work for Bowman. I don't know. I can't speak directly to that, and I'm not tied to any player who's had a Bowman card. So it could just be a timing thing. Maybe it was something they were doing consciously. I know with Jackson Churio, they did try to have autos of him in 2022 Bowman. He just didn't get them out in time, so they had to delay it to 22 Bowman Chrome. So it could be any number.
My theory is they actually try to do major signings as groups during spring training. So a lot of these players, the draft players that aren't there, they really got to go after the Crews, obviously, for coming up, or like last year, Jackson Hott. They got to get those guys in. And then somewhere on their calendars, we can't get to Walcott, but we can't hold him out this long either.
Yeah.
And
maybe
there's a million reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And it could be, with Churio, that would seem to be maybe an issue, or maybe it was he physically himself couldn't get them out quick enough.
Right.
But Walcott was Bowman Chrome, and I've been waiting for him for over a year now. Ever since he signed, I've been high on this kid. Electric tools. It's a lower floor because he's got some swing and miss to his game. But the tools that he does have, I mean, we'll see about the hit tool, but the power is real, very real. And, for a shortstop, it's very impressive. So, I mean, he's got a super high ceiling. We'll see how it plays out. There have been other guys that didn't have a first auto. I know Brennan Davis was the first one that I became familiar with. And, when he was healthy and hitting, his autos were doing tremendously well. We're seeing a little bit more on House and Merrill. That's the next bigger. They're probably bigger examples now that Davis has run into some injury problems. But, House, Merrill, those guys still sell well. I don't know if it's as, anyone who's looking for their auto and doesn't see the first knows it's really their first. So I don't think it has a tremendous impact, but it does have some impact.
I agree. I agree. There is some movement one way or another, but a true collector understands it's a first auto.
Yeah.
It's not a first card. It's a first auto, and autos are king. Bowman is king. Auto is king. It's that simple. And so we're gonna dive in. Kenny, I apologize in advance. We're gonna dive into the Giants really quickly. The Giants aren't high. They don't have a lot in the set. They're sort of sparse, but they have one guy. They have Rainier Arias that I think we all have somewhere in our top 10, top 15. Small sample size, 60 at bats right now. You know me, 540 OBP already, batting .414. Again, small sample size, 4 home runs, 21 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. Just that alone, I love. The Giants, again, great organization, winning organization. They find a way to do it. I feel like they don't have a great team this year, and they're competing for that wild card spot. It helps that there's more wild card spots nowadays. But I like Arias. Bobby, you have him on your list. We're going with pseudo top 5 because we're not really locked in yet. But tell me about him. They're going to be a cheap chase, but that is the only card you could pull. Yeah. I promise you, it's the only card of value you could pull for the Giants on this set.
Yeah, he's in my top 5. He'll be, when I do my chase rankings, that's more, card based. He'll be a top 5 chase for me for sure. And I think that, like I said, you can't really trust Dominican Summer League data, but as excited as I can be about 16 games of Dominican Summer League sample, the numbers are outrageous. I mean, what he only played for a couple months, not even. I think all of his games came in the same month. But yeah, what he did was insane. He was who I was talking about earlier when I was talking about Vargas's WRC plus. Rainer Arias's in 16 games was 230, which is just insane. 379 ISO. I mean, this is a 17-year-old kid. Batted .414, 19.7% walk rate. I mean, just gaudy numbers. He's not as highly touted as a prospect as Vargas, but I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised. I, at one point, after looking at the numbers, was like, I could make an argument, for him over Vargas. I didn't in the long run. I still think Vargas is a better prospect overall, and his sample size is a little bit bigger. But yeah, what Arias did this year it's pretty crazy so far.
And so, like, in a weird way to me, I loved Xavier Isaac in 21 and 23 Bowman, and obviously Junior was the big one. But like, this is that second tier dude to me that if he goes on a streak in the right minor league system, cards are just going to take off, and it's a low risk with him. I mean, in a case break right now, they're under 100, which is cheap. You've got like 4 teams. This is a tier 4, tier 5 team. This is 5th to last price team on the market right now, and I think you have a guy who could catch lightning in a bottle because he is that good. It's just everybody else on that checklist is just that bad, and so as Landman said before, it's such a grain of salt. It's that block of salt that I can't price the Giants the way I would if this kind of prospect was in a draft product. And so do you have anything to add about Arias? I know we don't have a lot on these guys, but tell us. I know he's in your top 5, top 10, give or take.
He's actually in my top 5. He might be in my top 3, actually. Yeah, and again, we're taking the numbers with a grain of salt. Again, a block of salt, if you will. But it's 2 weeks basically of games. Did he get hot? Is he good? Is he beating up on bad pitching? I mean, the thing about the Dominican Summer League is that a lot of these guys, I mean, there's a reason everybody walks because the pitchers have a tough time getting it over the plate, relatively speaking. I mean, it's not like, you're coming in A-ball and the guys have, college experience from major divisions or conferences. But I mean, I looked into Arias a decent amount actually for fantasy purposes. I did a midseason draft, and I actually took Arias over Laz Montes because I think there's a little more exciting potential for Arias. Now, again, who knows? But that was just as much what I loved about Arias as it is that, as hot as Montes is, it's a long swing. So I'm a little worried about the hit tool for him, but it's a deep league, and I took Arias with my last pick because the things there are certain things that I like to look at with these international guys before they come over. It's the hit to walk rate. It's always something I look at, but isn't really the walk to strikeout rate. It's not so much that I want to see him walking; it's that I really want to see a low strikeout rate because I don't want to see him swinging at the junk that we were just talking about. So I'm not putting too much stock into the walk rate, but at least I know that he can lay off of just the junk. The other thing is the physical frame and projectability. He's 6'2", 185. Vargas, like Bob said, 6'4", I think 175. I mean, these guys are 16, 17, not even, I don't think any of them are 18. So they're not going to be fully developed, but you want to see the shoulders, the height. These are all good things to look at. The build and the projectability of that build to add good strength. And then finally, it's the ISO. And I don't know, Bob, if you mentioned it, but his ISO is 379. Again, it's
Insane.
16 games. It's 76 plate appearances. But, you go off of what you have, and what he has is incredibly impressive. So I think he's got the projectability to back it up. I think he was the 15th rated international prospect. Again, that's such a crapshoot. I mean, a lot of these guys are getting ranked when they're 16, really 14 or 15.
I was going to say 16 would be late for these guys.
Yeah, 16 is when they sign. So that's when the lists get released. But it's a lot of that info. And it's a lot of the info the teams work off of. Because a lot of these guys are really, I'm not saying this with any knowledge of, credible knowledge, because I was not in an international department. I didn't know any guys in an international department. But what I heard as a fan before I started working in baseball is some of these deals are kind of lined up before, sometimes well before they turn 16. Now, obviously before, but
you could feel it for a lot of these dudes, even because the second they turn like 15, it's like, oh, Vargas is eyeing the Dodgers, and then 12 months later the contract signed.
They split these guys down too.
Mm-hmm, right away.
Yeah.
It's like it's sandbagging. They sandbag for 6 months essentially, and boom. But so we're high. We're all high on Arias. Giants outfield prospect. Giants are going to be in that tier 4 chase area. They're not going to be that expensive, but this is the only chase really for them in the set. But let's keep going. Cincinnati has had a great resurgence this year. Ellie De La Cruz, Encarnacion Strand, McClain, Lodolo, sadly, is out for the rest of the year. Hunter Green, all these guys, they probably have one of the youngest cores in baseball right now. And Steer, by the way, Steer is also playing phenomenal. They got one more coming up. I mean, they have a few more. Marte's also, I believe, up. They have another one in Alfredo Duno. He's listed as a catcher, as I'm going to refer to Bobby shortly. He is not a catcher, but he is a pretty good prospect when it comes to hitting the baseball. He's Cincinnati. You're looking at tier 2, maybe even tier 3 on a break side of things. Tell me about Duno. What do you like? Big dude, crushes balls. Let's hear it, Bobby.
Yeah, he hits tanks. He's probably plus power. He's probably one of the only guys. Basalo, we didn't talk much about him because we talked about him as a catcher. I know that Lan has him as plus power. Yeah, Duno's going to be the same way. He only played, again, Dominican Summer League, not a lot of data to go off of, but in 45 games, he hit 6 home runs as a 17-year-old. ISO was decent, about 191, 19.5% walk rate. I love, like we said, love to see that. The walk to strikeout at 0.93. Walk to strikeout ratio, 153 WRC plus. I mean, just really good numbers all the way across the board. It was interesting. We were talking about it earlier. He signed as a catching prospect, but 45 games in to his professional career, he has DH'd 45 times. And I was laughing about that earlier because I don't know that I've ever seen a team give up on developing someone's defense at such a young age. They're not even going to let him try to play catcher.
I mean, the ink hasn't even dried on the contract.
Yeah.
Like, you're done.
He's 17 years old.
Let's
and
go.
he's a DH. He's what he is. But I mean, he mashes. So
he mashes. And so for me, it's hard. I look at it as what does that take away from his Bowman value? And is there? What does defense bring to the game? We talk about catchers don't get love and pitchers don't get love, which is crazy because catching defense is so important. If you look at, we'll say Adley, since Adley's call up, Baltimore Orioles have the best record in Major League Baseball. That's a fact. So you look at Dunno, and he'll never see the field, it looks like. So are you buying a career David Ortiz? And David Ortiz, I'm not comparing him to Hall of Famer David Ortiz. I'm comparing him positionally David Ortiz. But if you look at David Ortiz, does not get a lot of hobby love. He gets a lot of baseball love. He gets a lot of Boston love. He has the rings and he has the Boston Marathon moment that we'll play on SportsCenter for the rest of our lives. But does someone like that get the hobby love? This dude will hit home runs and his cards will sell on eBay the second that first home run goes 500 feet. But then he'll be forgotten about. I think he has a better hit tool than like Schwarber, essentially. But Landman, you talk to me about this because I struggle with this one-dimensional play, and one-dimensional from the standpoint of like he's going to get on base, he's going to hit home runs, he's going to get RBIs minimum. That's 3 dimensions, but he might not see the field.
If he hasn't played a game, and maybe that's because there was some kind of injury and they just want him hitting. Again, the data out of there isn't just restricted to the numbers. We don't really know what's going on there.
That's concerning too, then, to me.
Well, it could just be he's rehabbing, and they're like, you know what?
Yeah.
Again, this is purely hypothetical. I have no idea. I mean, this dude is 6, as my computer freezes. He's 6'2", 210, and he's 17 years old. He's 210. That's a pretty big boy.
Yeah.
So this could be a limited athletically guy, but he hits like Bob said. It's plus power already, and it could have another notch in it. So I mean, the floor is probably pretty low for this guy, but there are people who bucked that stigma and had very good careers, like you said. Now we're not comparing, but there are DH only guys like David Ortiz, Nelson Cruz. And the thing about guys like that is I don't know if we can truly gauge their hobby market because the hobby's different than it was when these guys came up.
100%. I'm with you, and I'm not retracting my statement, but yes.
Right, no.
Ortiz came up at the end of a junk wax era. Same with Nelson Cruz. And it was a completely different format, completely different investors, completely different everything.
Different parallels, even like the
everything. Yeah. Not even like, I mean, it was owned by Topps still, and Topps was a top dog at the time, and now they fell apart and Fanatics took over and all that fun stuff. So we are in a different world. We're not even like on a different chapter. We're on a different book than when David Ortiz was coming up as a card hobbyist or anything like that. And even as great as he was, people don't collect 2023 David Ortiz autos from Topps. It's just not a thing. They get a little love, but there's a ceiling on those cards. But I agree. I do think he has more upside in the hobby world than a David Ortiz and Adam Dunn even, just because it's framed so differently nowadays on what we're chasing. So good point. Cincinnati again is doing really well with their prospects. So I sort of trust their mind. It's weird to say that, but they're winning ball games again. They don't look like, they're buyers essentially. They claim 2 of the Angels guys on the waivers, which we've just waived our whole team essentially. And so they know what they have and their window's open and it's going to be open for a little bit. And I believe, they have an eye for it right now. And I hope it works out. I know a lot of Cincinnati Reds fans and they've been miserable for years. and on top of that, Cincinnati, you do have a Johnny Bench chase. I'm not valuing that into my breaks much because don't know the odds on it, and
they're low.
It can't be that great.
They're very.
They got to be. There's only 3 from what I've seen. There's only like 3 legends, and I think it's the Ruth, Clemente, and Bench. And Ruth is on the wrong team for his first. Technically, it should be a Baltimore Oriole, but he is on the Red Sox. But Cincinnati, have fun with this one. This is a good one. You got a guy who just is going to hit moonshots, and you got Johnny Bench. Like that's fun. And you do have some other cards. It's not like you do have some prospects in here, or some rookies. It's not a dead checklist for them. They're going to be a fun chase. They got some opportunity. But we're going to go to another tier 2 team. Could have been a tier 1 team, but Ethan Salas just commands that much love right now. And that's the Arizona Diamondbacks. De Los Santos, if I'm not mistaken, 23 Bowman had color. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so he's going to be an auto-only player here. He's going to be another one of those, just like Geloff. I know Landman, I believe Landman might be the only one that has him on the top 10. I liked him while 23 was out a lot, even though he obviously wasn't the main chase in 23 Bowman for Arizona. But again, Arizona also does have a ton of Corbin Carroll cards. They are going to be hard to pull. So if you are chasing Corbin Carroll, be aware you're going to get base cards. You're not in some color, but the autos are going to be 1 in 10 cases, 1 in 5, something crazy. The image variations are going to be hard to find. You should be chasing guys like De Los Santos almost over Corbin Carroll if you're going into a break. So Landman, tell me about Division. Is that right? Davison? Bowman Chrome is my worst product for anything. It's pretty clear these international prospects screw with my essential dyslexia at this point. But that's probably the hardest one I've got. So tell me about him.
Yeah, I mean, Davison is he's interesting. He's got plus power. He's really taken a step back this year. I didn't really put him so much in my top 10 as I just did a list of guys that somewhat
we want to talk about.
Yeah, just some guys that kind of piqued my interest. He's 20 years old though. Small guy, 5'11", 185, third baseman. Not fast, not a great hit tool, but it's legit plus power. So yeah, there's no reason he should really be on any top 10 lists at this point. Last year, I know he was a very exciting name, and I was looking forward to him a lot. And then he was no auto, and
that's the boat they missed. They missed that boat because Arizona would have been a crazy chase if he had an auto and Bowman.
Yeah, I didn't chase him because 1, it was color only, and 2, the Diamondbacks with Drew Jones they were the most expensive. They still might be the most expensive, even with Cameron Arrow jumping Drew Jones on the prospect lists.
Yeah, people still love Drew. And they also have, sorry to interject here, but they also have Christopher Torrin.
Yeah.
The Diamondbacks in Bowman Chrome. He's probably more of like a tier 2, maybe bottom of tier 2, upper tier 3 prospect on this checklist. But again, those are value plays that I hope people understand is when we talk about low data, this is the one product to me that you want to get a team in a break that maybe has a ton of autos because anything could happen. Literally, the guy who's number 70 on my ranking could end up being number 1 within 6 months. And so I look at something like here for Diamondbacks, and they're going to be in that tier 2, so they're going to be around $200 in a case break. You pull a DeSantos auto, you're going to be pretty happy. He's shown he can hit. You've got Corbin Carroll as a backup, which is a great backup. And then you look and you still have a few other guys like Torrin, who is a great hold. Anything can happen.
And that's a great point, actually. We were talking about 2021 being really almost like a nuked product at this point. Again, I'm not out on it yet. But
he's out.
But I still got Emmanuel Rodriguez, so I know we're talking about at some point once we get to outfielders. Yes. But one of my favorite chases, even up until the point of a couple months ago, was the Tampa Bay. Well, actually, it was the Texas Rangers chasing, for me, Oslevis Basabe on the Rays, who was having a great start to his career. And you can get those guys super cheap. I think I was getting them around 50, maybe even less in a case, and I know my buddy Enzo hit me Orange Shimmer that I don't even know if I want to sell. Like I might just, you're pre-rolling it. Do you just let it ride?
And so that's how I look at this set. And we're going to talk about our top teams later a little bit. It's fun. Arizona's got a fun team this year. They've got that secondary in Corbin, and they do have some other prospects that are chaseable. They're not, like we talk about Arias a little in the Giants. Like they don't have other autos really outside of Arias. So if you don't hit him, you don't hit.
Right.
If you don't hit this, if you're chasing DeSantos or Corbin and you don't hit, but you hit one of the other autos, it's a fun hold. And there's opportunity, and you throw it into PSA for $15 and you see what happens. And then you're that guy, you're the biggest collector of whoever it may be. And maybe we hope you retire and shoot us and give us a shout out. But to say I like Arizona, they're going to be expensive, relatively speaking. But let's talk Milwaukee. I know this is a weird transition, but Milwaukee as well, right? Milwaukee, we talked about low. They did a great job with pitching prospects for many years, and they've made some moves in the batting game. Churio, we have praised, and we will praise more in future episodes. But we've got Lara, and I will admit, I got a text message from Bobby before we went live. Brett, I know who you like. So we're gonna start with Lara, and then we'll go to Dylan O'Ray. But let's start with Lara. Lara, if I'm not mistaken, also is an auto only in this set. He has color in 23 Bowman. Shout out to Cooley. I'm gonna tell you that we shouted you out. I'm shouting people out just so it makes them listen next week, or Friday hopefully. But tell us about Lara. What do you like? What do you see in him? Obviously, we don't see much, but out of what we see, where are you with him?
I like him a lot as a prospect. I think that if we were going strictly off of ranking these guys as prospects, as far as building a team, or say if you were doing dynasty baseball, Lara would probably be like a top 3 or 4 guy for me. As far as the card chase, he doesn't offer a ton of power, so I don't know how the card market is going to view him. But he has a plus hit tool. He has great bat to ball skills. He's 18 years old. He's already in high A. The Brewers seem to be moving him up, pretty quickly. He had a 12.3% walk rate, 14.5% K rate as an 18-year-old in A-ball. I mean, he doesn't swing and miss a lot. He's not super fast, maybe like average to above average. So really, you're just playing the plus hit tool. And we'll see how far the card market takes to, him having probably below average power. And, we know how the card market is. They, chicks dig the long ball. There's so many guys that we're going to talk about, probably 2 or 3 of them in this chase, that they can have plus hit tools and they can be, batting 300, but they're not hitting home runs. The hobby doesn't care about them. And I'm interested to see where Lara kind of falls, because I do like him a lot as a player, but I'm not sure how the card market will, accept him.
And I think the 3 of us mentioned it a little bit to each other before we went live here. There doesn't feel to be a ton of power hitters per se this year in this product. There's a lot of good hit tools. And we'll go into O'Ray in a second, but it's the same kind of thing. We're talking bat to ball, OBP, good eyes, low strike, high walk. Again, short sample, but it's there. And Lara's one of those guys. Landman, Lara, I know you know a little about him. You got to have something for me here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have anything much beyond what Bobby said. I get a little bit of a PTSD from light hitting Milwaukee infielders. I went in 22. I went pretty big on Felix Valerio, who he was Lara actually reminds me a lot of him. But Valerio is a little bit even more of an extreme case. He had a plus hit tool, but he was a 5.5 hit for some power, and he's backed it up his game a little bit at AA. But what Lara's done is impressive. But I think Bobby nailed it. It's a good eye. It's a good bat. It's plus. He's 5'7". It's light. It's less power than even Valerio showed. So again, I am biased in this aspect. I fully admit it. If I'm going to chase a guy from the Brewers, it would probably be Big Game Bob. That's Robert Moore, the Arkansas product, son of the Dayton Moore, the Kansas City GM. I can't remember his first name. I apologize.
Oh, yeah.
But this is his kid, and this guy showed up at the biggest games in Arkansas. They went on a huge run with him, and he's just a fun guy. I mean, he's got swag. He's got the cool name. He shows up in clutch situations. But this is kind of what's fun about Milwaukee and this is why it was the perfect transition. When you're talking about a team to chase that gives you a lot of options, I think the best example is probably Milwaukee, and they're not going to be highly priced. but they have these guys like Lara, O'Reilly, Moore, Giarte. I may have butchered that name. But I mean, all the guys that were in 2023 Bowman, I don't think any of them got autos. Now they're all in 23 Chrome with autos. Now I'm pretty sure Moore won't be a first auto guy because he was a 22 draft guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he's still a fun prospect. I mean, he's doing pretty well. I mean, he's kind of holding his own at high A this year, stealing a lot of bases, fine, not striking out a ton, walking fine, just a little bit below average power. But you know, it's these are the guys. Like I was saying, Basabe earlier. We're talking about Dunno. Like this is the product where you may not want to chase that top guy unless you think he's a generational guy like Salas. And we've talked about Salas, and there's a very high chance he is actually, given the the probabilities that exist anyways. But I think there's 2 catchers in history that have debuted before they were 21, and they were Pudge and Johnny Bench. Like
and we're about to get a third.
If he continues on this track, like he's going to be in good company. And so
they have 7 autos, not including insert auto of Jackson Churio. So they have 8 autos. They have 7 prospect autos. We're not sure on the first side. A few of them won't be first, but that's one of the bigger auto checklists out right now. And so they're going to be a tier 2, tier 3 team. They're going to be 150 to 200 a case. But as we said, this is the kind of team that you buy in. You have a good shot at pulling an auto in your case.
And then another guy, as I scramble, who just slid under my radar, I don't know if I put him on the list. I have him on my list here, though, is Carlos Rodriguez. Now,
he's on your
list.
list.
It's a pitcher. And there are very few pitchers in Bowman Chrome, which a lot of people like, because pitchers don't get that hobby love. But if you're looking to buy low, sell high, there is no better place to do that than with pitchers. So I know 2022 Bowman Chrome, I think, had 8 pitchers. Dodd was one of them. Gavin Stone got a lot of helium. Harlan Susana, who I'm a big fan of, he's got huge potential. You can get
like 50% of the pitchers from 22 are sell well. I've got a Gavin Stone Green Atomic PSA 10, and it's 400 or 500. This is the one product you could almost chase a pitcher and be okay with it.
Yeah. And then, like you said, there's 8 guys. I mean, even if he's your favorite, which for most people he won't be, but for people who are screwed up in the head like me and actually like to spend money on pitchers, it's a great chase. But you have that.
It's a great consolation prize. And that brings us to O'Reilly. Dylan, shortstop. I feel like Milwaukee just is filled with middle infield prospects right now, which is a little concerning from like a logjam. You want to talk about less power? This guy has 0 home runs across his minor league experience. I don't even know if he's at a warning track yet. But OBP of 500, which I love.
Have to.
Batting average of 342. And he steals bases like a maniac. He's got 41 stolen bases in 205 at-bats. I mean, like, that. If you think about it, that makes no sense. He's got 128 hits in those at-bats, and he has 41 stolen bases, 45 in his career, but the year before, I think it was 20 at-bats or so. Same kind of thing. I like him. What's he going to be worth? I don't know. It's hard. It's a really hard product to, like, pinpoint prices on. But again, we said in the intro, this is the cheapest of the Bowman products. So you're going to get that low entry, but then you have to also think you're going to get lower sales unless you have, like last year, we backed up into Jackson Churio, and his prices were crazy. And that doesn't happen very often. We sort of, I don't want to say backed up into Ethan Salas. This is where he belonged ultimately. Everyone doubted that we would get autos, and we got them. So everyone be excited. And I might have teased it 2 weeks ago if everyone was listening. I like O'Reilly. I think he's an on-base machine. In the short sample size, it seems like a low floor. What's the ceiling? Ray Ordonez made. Like, I mean, I look at that as like Ray Ordonez is like 2 home runs a year. Like, I'm talking like from a hitter standpoint. No one's Ray Ordonez. I loved that guy. I just like these guys that just get on base, make the pitchers uncomfortable. He's a gamer kind of thing. It's like one of those gamer kind of moves. Like, he's gonna do those things where, like, Jackson. Let's go Milwaukee. Listen to me now. Perfect world. You got O'Reilly leading off, gets on base. He's messing with the pitcher. You got Churio up, makes a mistake, boom, home run, 2-run shot. Like, these are the kind of guys that make that happen. Like, you are so distracted by guys who are stealing like this. You got Acuna. He hits home runs, and he's going to win MVP. I'm conceding officially. Acuna's going to win MVP in 2023. I'm not happy about it, but he's going to do it. That just, like, annoy everybody. And the pitcher's like, you can't throw over more than twice now, or it's and then once you do, it's an automatic stolen base, or it's a ball. And so with the new rules, I think guys like O'Reilly, I think they do well. Now, do they do well for the hobby? Probably not.
I mean, it's kind of what we were talking about earlier. Where do guys like Ortiz, and here's another name. Now, it's not a similar profile, but what would Billy Hamilton do with all these Bowman cards coming up as a prospect? Now, Billy Hamilton was fast as hell and couldn't hit a lick, but I don't think there's any statistical comparison for someone who walks twice as much as they strike out. So I'm grasping at straws with Billy Hamilton. But yeah, I mean, somebody this unique, I'm struggling.
And I love it. I love the opportunity because the reality is he's not your number one chase in Milwaukee, most likely. But he's a great secondary trophy or third or fourth. And you go back to Rodriguez for you. We go back to Lara for you. You don't buy in to the Brewers to chase Lara almost. You go into the Brewers just chase an autograph. And that's what, to me, that's sort of what Chrome is about. Because you want those wild cards. You want that. These are your lotto tickets, and like, no, you're not retiring, but these are your lotto tickets in that kind of way. Because we don't have such little data. You don't, and we're probably mentioning three guys. We're not mentioning three guys on the Brewers auto checklist that might end up better. Like, that's the crazy part about what we're talking about right now. But so we just talked about Lara, and we talked about O'Reilly. We talked about Rodriguez. Those are three of the seven outside of there is a Jackson Churio auto. 3 of the 7 from Milwaukee. So that's pretty exciting. Then we go to a guy that all three of us have on our list in one way, shape, or form. We're going over to Seattle. Seattle is going to be the number 2 team, I think, across the board for the most part. Seattle's been expensive for the last few breaks. You had Montez last, Gabriel Gonzalez recently. You're going to have, right now, you're going to have Celestine. Is it Feldman
Celestin, I think is how you pronounce it.
Feldman Celestin. But you also have an auto-only Axel Sanchez, who was in 23 Bowman, that people seem to love. I liked him. I have an orange color of him from 23 Bowman. Looking at his stats, small sample size, I don't love him. We'll talk about him not today because he's not on any of our lists, actually. But let's talk about Felon. I mean, that's a Felon.
Feldman.
Sorry, guys. Felon. I know. Felon sounded horrible, and I caught it pretty quickly. Seattle's fun. And so Bob, let's hear it. Like, tell me about him. What are you liking? I think we all like him. I've had about 5 or 6 dudes reach out to me saying, what's the Mariners going to cost, and can I take him in all your breaks?
And that made you up the price on him, right?
You know what? Most breakers, yes. But no, because the ones that reach out to me have been great customers. I like to keep, but they were already expensive. I already had them relatively expensive.
Yeah.
But you're going to see their prices jump as the bad teams lower. And that's what people have to realize. As the bad teams lower, those tier 3 and tier 4 teams that are sitting at $120 a case right now drop to $80. The Mariners of the world, the Dodgers of the world, the Diamondbacks of the world, those are the ones that creep up. The Padres tend to stick where they are because they're already 400 range, give or take, and that's about as high as you could go. Last year with Jackson was a little excessive. We saw him at 5, even 6, but that's because he shouldn't have even been in the product.
At the time, he was a top 5 prospect. I mean,
right. So that was a one-off that we haven't had in a long time. So I look at a team like Seattle. If you get him at 250, 260 right now, they could be 300 in a month. Sort of like what's not to the size of what Tampa Bay did with Junior Caminero, but those are the tier teams that do creep up as a breaker's perspective. So if you chase them, this is the time to chase Seattle. But let's talk about him. Let's talk about him. Seattle Mariners, you guys are hot as hell right now. I hate to say it. if it wasn't for Ohtani being Ohtani, this was Julio's MVP to lose at this point. It almost seems I think second half he's batting .400 with 14 home runs and 14 stolen bases, and his OBP's got to be in the 5, like crazy stuff. But we're not talking about current MLB players. We will get to that in 2 or 3 weeks. Let's talk about our Felnin.
Yeah, so Celestin, the shame with him, he's probably the only guy that's in my top 15 that we have zero data for. He'll be the first one with zero data. I believe he aggravated a hamstring or a calf, something on his leg. I think it was a hamstring during like inter squad games, so he actually hasn't played yet. But in the international period, he was the number 2 ranked prospect behind Ethan Salas. I believe the Mariners gave him 4.7, something like that, million. So a lot of these guys, and I know to a smaller scale, I had Emmanuel Bonilla of the Blue Jays in the 2023 Bowman. I kind of, because he was another guy who had no stats, sometimes when you don't have stats on these guys, it's okay to kind of look at the signing bonuses as kind of like well, how did this team feel about him? So, I mean, you've got to trust the fact the Mariners gave him $4.7 million. We don't have any data on him, but you don't give that much money to someone who's, like not legit. He's 6'1". He's a toolsy shortstop. He probably has potential for a plus arm, plus speed, plus raw power, switch hitter. I mean, the guy does it all. I wish we had some data on him, but from everything that, we were able to see before he got hurt and just seeing the amount of money that the Mariners were willing to shell out for him, obviously they believe in him. I think he's going to be a really popular, Chase. Probably a top 5 for a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's where I'm seeing him, just from like a market standpoint. I agree with that 100%. Anything to add, Lan, or are we going to move on to...
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Again, there's not much to go off of other than the scouting reports, the bonus, because he hasn't played a game. But it's a true 5-tool type player. I mean, this if he lives up to the hype, it could be, well, I don't want to say who the last shortstop was who did what he could do, because he don't play baseball right now either.
Let's not talk about him, guys. But he's talk about lost Bowman value.
Well, you know where I stand on that. You've seen the
They are currently in transit to Adam Landman, UPS's hands, but they do look beautiful as PSA 10s.
Oh yeah, I forgot those are coming. Yeah, 2 more gems on the way. Boy, I can't wait to
All right. Buy 1 card at the Dallas Card Show. Get a Wander for free.
I'm not even bringing Wander, right? I mean, what's the point? Like, I got some fun ones, but
people might stay away from your table if you bring them.
This is Texas, we gotta play it straight. We can't have that controversial type stuff unless he plays for the
right.
But
then it's bad. So let's talk Guardians then. Let's move on. Are we good to move on to when we're talking about
just one thing? Because again, there's not much to say other than he's absolutely tooled up. And it's again kind of more of a general point. He, I think, should be in the same category, if not higher, than guys we were looking at last year, like Roderick Arias and Christian Vaquero. Now, people kind of actually, I mean, what's our rating here? Can I say what words can I say? They talk disparagingly about Roderick Arias and Vaquero, but these guys were really highly touted guys. They were the 1 and 2 in their class before Salas and Celestin, but they were terrible. They were terrible in the DSL. Arias was under the Mendoza line, striking out 4.5 times more than he was walking, with not much in the way of.
I mean, he was swinging with his eyes closed.
Yeah, and this could be this was the situation of where he just wasn't challenged, and he was just maybe this is what the way I took it. So sometimes you do, like Bob said, have to trust the bonus, the scouting reports, because it's a capped pool that these guys are spending money on, and they spend all they do is try and figure out the way to maximize that budget. So if you're going to throw it at one guy, there's a good chance there's a good chance there's a reason why. There's a good chance it's a special player, and that's the reason why. So I mean, Arias got injured this year, but Arias was great when he was healthy, and it was 27 games, but that's one of those kind of backwards transitions where it's like he just wasn't really challenged, or could have been any number of things. But taking the stats with a grain of salt. Now, some do, it's tough to know. So I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this is just the inverse of what we were talking about before. And Celestin and Salas are really the only two guys I think in this product who have that, not necessarily type of ceiling, but that type of hype. And those are the reason those guys are going to be expensive. And it's tough to justify that unless you just say, you know what, these guys know what they're doing, and this is a guy I'm going to invest in. Other than that, you really don't have a lot to go off of.
And so Celestin, who we are talking about right now, is Seattle Mariners, and Axel Sanchez is auto only. Those are the only two autos for Seattle in this checklist for the prospect side of things, and they're both first. Seattle, even with just those two, are probably the second biggest chase. So it says a lot as well. I mean, it just, we're all us breakers are pulling these numbers off the same data everyone else is, and then we have to make an educated guess on where we need to price it. And so signing bonus, tools, all that adds up. Add Sanchez to it, and it helps. Seattle will not be cheap. I think they have a chance of going up, depending on what gets pulled early. So if you're a Seattle Mariner fan, good luck. You got two great opportunities this time around, and you had great opportunities in Bowman. I mean, you guys have been feasting. If you got the money to spend on Seattle, you're feasting. You've got a lot of opportunity to make some good hobby money or PCs to build. We're going to transition into the Guardians with Francisca Wellman. He is that right?
You got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
I got it.
And that's it.
Whoa. We're done. We'll see you guys next week. No. I like him. My radar with him is OBP over 400, batting over 3. 152 games. He's got 3 home runs, 24 RBIs, 11 stolen bases. It's nothing screams I'm a superstar, but he seems to just be a good ball player. He seems to have a little bit of all the tools, which we don't see a lot of on this set. I see a lot of guys who either could really, really hit for average or really, really hit for power. And he sort of feels like that hybrid with the Guardians. Bobby, I know you're relatively high on him as you can be in this product. As I look at the Guardians checklist, the Guardians aren't going to be a high team, but they do have some, we have 5 autos. Juan Benjamin, Collado, Istúriz, Francisco we're talking about, and Túnez. So tell me, let's focus right here on Francisca. What do you like? It's a small sample size. We're talking 150 at bats, give or take.
Yeah, he's projected to have a plus hit tool, which is something that you got to love. He's another guy that I lumped in when I was talking about Lara, where I think the bat to ball skills are really good, but you worry if the hobby cares if there's no power. I will say his power numbers compared to what Lara did don't look too bad for being 17 years old. Like you said, he hit 3 home runs in 40 games, 184 ISO for a 5'8", 17-year-old. Not terrible. WRC plus 144. The metrics are really good across the board. I think that he probably, because of his frame, projects to have below average power, which might hurt him in the card market. But I mean, he definitely has a play. He might have the best hit tool. I know we were just talking about O-Ray's crazy hit tool, but Welbin Francisca he's probably one of a couple guys that has a chance for a plus hit tool.
He's got a little more power than
right.
O-Ray.
He doesn't hit 0 home runs. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see a lot of those guys. There's a couple of them, but it'll be interesting to see how the hobby kind of, once we start auctioning off players, how they do that. Welbin Francisca and the how those guys get bunched in together. Luis Lara, because like I said, it's an above average hit tool. It's a plus hit tool, plus hit tool. But unless he taps into that power, I don't know that anyone cares. But I like him. He's top 10 in this product for me.
I care. Adam, how do you feel? How do you feel about him? We could also take the moment if there's a different Guardian prospect you like, as we talk about the Guardians. Where do you stand?
No, I like Francisca, and this is plays. I think we talked about this on the last episode of the podcast with Brito. This very much is a Cleveland Guardians prospect. He's undersized. He has a good hitting IQ. So this is maybe one of those things where do the numbers bear out? They are good power numbers. I think that's maybe one thing where it won't translate right away, but it could, because this is the type of guy that the Cleveland organization likes to hone in on. It started with Ramirez. If you didn't check out the podcast last episode, you need to be listening to it because you're getting great stuff. And sorry, I hurt my arm patting myself on the back.
It's hard being right. No.
This is the guy that they target, and I like this type of I like a guy who knows how to hit. They had Ramirez. They didn't develop, but they're responsible for the major league success of Andres Jimenez, I would say. Rosario didn't really pan out, but he was a little bit of a different profile, and that's maybe why. Stephen Kwan, Brian Roquil coming up, Tyler Freeman, Juan Brito, maybe. I mean, this is the guy they like. Yeah, he had a little bit more power, but so to Ramirez, these guys, once you tap into that power, if that clicks, superstar, absolute superstar.
And that's why he's on my list. I like his upside. He's that rocket. He's that guy where you get a cheap auto, you sit on it, and then he figures it out. He either changes his swing a little bit and changes the launch angle and opens the hips, whatever it may be, and all of a sudden that 3 home runs turns into 10, and then he becomes the guy who I'm not going to say Jose Ramirez.
No, that's the hope. That's the
most wishful thinking.
Yeah.
But like, as a Flyer, as a team that has 6 or 7 autos right now in this checklist, it's pretty big, and it's a lot of potential in there. And they're in that tier 3. They're in that $100 to $120 case range. And another one, I think they go up over time as people start hitting and more. What people don't realize is these guys are going to get a few more at bats potentially as the season winds down. And one hot week for these guys changes their card value as a prospector, which is the funniest part of it. But one great week changes everything. And I like them. I like them a lot. We're going to, we got some interesting ones coming up, I think. This is going to be a long episode. So thank you so far if you're listening and sticking with us. If you're enjoying it, on Spotify, we do have questions. I'm going to ask a poll and I'm going to ask questions. So please go there, answer it. It's going to be about Bowman Chrome. And I want your feedback. We want to hear from you guys because we're doing this for you guys. There are some prospects that have already been traded. And so you have to be aware what uniform they're wearing. One of the bigger chases in that case is Marco Vargas. It's our other Vargas. Marco Vargas is now a Met, but in the set, he's in a Marlins uniform. He was part of the David Robertson trade that happened 2 weeks ago, give or take. Just a quick update on the set checklist for the Marlins. We're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 autos. I know Anthony Perguro is a Peguero. That sounds more right. He's an auto only guy as well. He had color in 23 Bowman, so there are some auto onlys. But again, you have a backup after backup after backup auto that you could hold and have fun with. But let's talk Vargas. He deserves some love. He moved on to a sexier team. He's in a Mets organization. Looking at his stats, he has a little more bats than most of the guys we're talking about. He has just under 400 bats in minor league baseball across, levels that he's played on. And he's doing well. 430 OBP. He's batting around 300 career. This year it's down to 275, which was still solid. He steals some bases. Power is not his forte. But Landman, talk to me about Vargas. I know you have him somewhere on your list. He's definitely got a bump being a Mets guy.
Yeah, and so this is kind of where it gets a little more fun to look at guys because he is a little bit of a sleeper prospect, but he's also, because he's a sleeper prospect and he didn't get in Bowman Chrome last year, we now do have some data on him stateside. He was in the complex league for the Marlins, went there and played there for the Mets, and actually got promoted to A-ball, I think last week. I think he's got about 6 games there under his belt. And I mean, he's a small guy. I think no, he's 6'1". He's 170. So it's one of those guys. He's not grown into his body yet. It's a good frame. It's not a big frame, but there's certainly, we were talking about Jose Ramirez. He's 5'9". I mean, the height isn't the problem. We'll see if he can put on good strength, and it's not going to project to be plus power, but if he hits enough, it does project to be a plus hit tool. He's very young. He just turned 18. He had a 144 WRC plus with the Marlins for about 33 games. Again, it's a small sample size, but he's very young for the level, and especially A-ball, he's holding his own. He's got a good idea what he's doing at the plate. He takes a walk. He takes a lot of walks, and not going to hit for a ton of power, but if he hits for enough, this could be a fun player.
Agree, and that's why he's up there for me. I like the switch to the organization. I like everything. Yeah, I think he's just a good player. I think I don't care about height anymore. You look at what Altuve just did in Texas, and Altuve obviously is a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. As much as I hate what happened with him a few years ago, he's one of the best second basemen we've seen, at least our generation to start. So you got guys like that; they can hit. Athletic is athletic. I'm not worried about size anymore unless you're 5'2". Yeah, that's like, that's a different ball game. But he's I think on our list, if I'm not mistaken, he's third or fourth in the most amount of bats that we're able to actually see stateside. We'll talk about one more next, and we'll go over a few. We'll probably talk about all of them over time, because also the Mets, which we could lead into, is Jacob Ramier. Raymer. So he butchered it twice. Same thing. 343 at bats. He's a good Mets chase. He is his OBP is his average is but he's got some power. So same boat. I think I'm the only one who put Jacob anywhere on my list. I like him just because he was one of the guys who has a little power. And you know what? Mets sell. At the end of the day, like, if you're gonna go into a random break and you end up with the Mets in this product, you're gonna be okay. Like, that's just the reality of it. You're not gonna get Vargas. Vargas will be wearing Miami uniforms unless you're with some Space Cadet breaker that goes by current roster, which would be very confusing. You won't have Vargas, but the Mets have some chases. The Mets are not dead in the water here, and I like them. I think they have 5 autos. You also have the rookie autos. They're another one where you back into the rookie autos, but you have like 6 or 7. You actually have like 6 or 7 autos on their prospect list, and then you have Francisco Alvarez and Brett.
Well, and it's not just the autos too, because in 23 Bowman you had rookies, and you did get the megas, which was new, but you only had paper color. There's going to be chrome color now for these rookies that you can. I mean, again, it's not maybe the biggest chase or the biggest hit, but I mean, if you get a Adley gold, I mean, if it's a rookie chrome, I mean, it doesn't need to be an auto for you to all of a sudden do well in that break. Now, it's a little easier to hit color than autos, but again, maybe not what you want your primary chase to be.
And that's why I say, everyone, if you're joining breaks or you're buying, understand what your backup, understand what your tier 2 and tier 3 hits are, and those are the color that we're talking about. The autos are going to be hard. There is 132 autos in this checklist. In a case of hobby, you're talking about 24 autos, and you're probably going to have 3 to 4 duplicates. So you're talking about 18-ish unique hits. And for HTA, you're talking about 1 extra auto per box. You're talking about 36 autos. But you're missing a lot of. But you cannot hit the color. You cannot hit the Beatty colors. You can't hit the rookie colors at all. You can only hit autos. So the Mets, as we transition, because we talked about the Marlins a little bit. Again, a lot of autos, decent prospects, great rookies, and so you have great tier 2, tier 3 fallback, as we may call it. But let's talk about another guy who's got a ton of at bats. We're talking about over 1,000 at bats. He was an Atlanta Brave. He is wearing an Atlanta Braves uniform in this checklist. The Braves do also come along with Michael Harris. They have 6 other autos. They've got, if you love Acuna, I know people love Acuna, you're going to get some Acuna color. You also have Vaughn Grisham. I believe it's his rookie card in here as well. But we're talking Justin Henry Malloy. He's one of the few dudes that we're going to talk about truly mashes. I mean, like, he's shown it. He could hit in 438 bats, which is a full season, essentially. 23 home runs, 81 RBIs. He's not going to steal many bases, obviously. 300 batting average, which is a good hitting tool. 432 OBP. He's got a pretty good eye there. I know people are high. I know Bobby's really high on him. My biggest problem is, I'm sorry, he's in Detroit, where talent seems to go to sort of die a little bit. A little bit. I gotta have a little backdoor if I'm wrong, and I can I told you guys, here's a chance. No, I liked him more in Atlanta. Is my point. I liked him more developed wise in Atlanta than I do in Detroit. I've seen some moonshots from him recently on Twitter because I know Braves fans, and I have this with Cuero, who just got traded to the White Sox. Is they come up in your system and they go on these hot streaks, and you sort of fall in love with them, and then they get moved, and it's hard to detach yourself. So, Bobby, as that heart flutters, talk to me about Justin Henry. I know you miss him, but I know you want the best for him. What do you like? Are you over the breakup?
I am. You know what helps me get over the breakup is when you see an ex and she's with someone uglier than you. That's what gets me through the fact. Right? The fact. So it's the fact that Justin Henry Malloy is mashing the ball this year. So you get that as a Braves fan. You're like, man, we shouldn't have traded him. But the Tigers aren't even letting him play. So it's I'm not even it's I can't even have that much regret. If the Tigers called him up and he starts mashing them, I'm going to be like, shit, we should have kept him. But the Tigers won't even let him play, which to me is incredible. I know he's not a strong defender. He plays a lot of DH. I think that's probably the reason why the Tigers have kept him in AAA, is to get him to work on his defense. He plays a little third base, a little left field, but it's the bat. The bat's what plays. I've been predicting him to be the next MLB call-up for about 6 months now, and I'm just wrong on a daily basis. I don't know what they're waiting for.
Because he's in Detroit.
It looks like Colt Keith is going to get up before him somehow. I don't even know how that happened. But yeah, I think it's an average hit tool. I think he has a chance for plus power. He's a good bat. Won't offer you any speed. Won't offer you any position versatility. Not a good defender. But I mean, the Tigers have so many holes in their lineup. I'm shocked that he hasn't come up yet. But again, he was blocked in Atlanta. Austin Riley's holding down third base. I don't know where he would have found, maybe a DH spot in our lineup, but I'm rooting for him. I hope that Detroit calls him up. He's way overdue, and hopefully he hits as well as he's been hitting this year.
So you broke up, but are you still friends?
Yeah, I still like him. I actually have.
It's not.
I actually have. Before I didn't know that he was getting an auto in 23 Chrome. I have a 23 Bowman non-auto gold refractor that I was hoping would be his best card, but now I guess I got to sell it before his autos come out.
And so that's sort of the trick, though, is some of these guys you don't know if they're going to get autos. So you almost want to sell their colors sort of as quick as you can, because if the auto comes out, what does it do to the color market? It's not going to move it significantly, but it's going to move it because there's a new Chase in town. There's a new guy in town, and it has some ink on it.
And I can tell you,
hopefully it has some ink on it. I guess
I can tell you this was a very extreme case. I can't remember many happening like this, but that's exactly what happened to me with Liover Peguero of the Pirates. Was I started a non-auto rainbow because they forgot the first stamp on his non-autos. So his first card, he had no autos. It was only non-autos, and it still didn't have a first stamp. And I collected almost a full rainbow, and then they put him in the next set with an auto and put the first stamp on the auto. And I'm just like, they just flush my collection down the toilet. They just love doing. They love doing that shit.
And so everyone, build at your own risk, because the next team we're going to talk about is the Yankees.
Can I real quick just put in a call? Malloy's
going
to get called up before this podcast drops.
He got taken out of the game yesterday after he walked. I saw he wasn't in the lineup tonight.
So everyone knows we're timestamping this. It is 9:04 Pacific Wednesday, September 6th. This will probably drop Friday, September 8th. If he's called up before, both Bobby and Landman, I'm giving both credit. They both said it.
I've been saying it for a while,
but he was pulled after a walk and has not played since.
Well, I didn't know that, but now I feel we'll pretend I did.
He's not playing tonight.
So
and it's he
possible.
actually is blocked, but only because it's Miggy's supposed swan song. I mean, they say it is.
And you know what? I should have known that. Like when I was doing my call-up indicator, every time I would update, Detroit's third base or DH, how negative the WAR was. I was just like, there's so many openings for Malloy. How can they not find a space? And then when I looked at their depth chart, I was like, I know why. It's because Miguel Cabrera is going to ride off into the storm batting 185, and they're just going to let him. There's just no chance that they're taking him out, for anybody.
Look, it's the bye-bye, movement right now, and everyone's giving him the gifts.
Why not?
Miguel Cabrera
he's
first
the best.
ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, he's great. God, I remember when he was on the Marlins and we're just mashing. And then what was it? Winter meetings when the big trade happened. It was crazy, but let's transition to crazy. One of the most disappointing teams of the year, and they're starting to put together now randomly, is the New York Yankees. Me and Bobby have someone on the list, and then Bobby and Landman have something on their list with the Yankees. I will say for the Yankees, you do have Volpe, our beautiful Volpe. He's a 2020 guy this year. You got Peraza, and we're talking about rookie chases. You also have Dominguez cards in here, Roger Arias cards. Now, none of those are gonna have autos, or color. Really,
does anyone know who holds the record for most Bowman releases? Is Dominguez close? He's got to be in at least 9 of them, right?
Got to be Jeter Downs.
Oh yeah, Jeter Downs. That's a good call.
I feel like it's Luis.
And the weird thing is,
I've seen this guy in 7 years of Bowman.
Usually,
Bowman
it's like guys that are really old. Dominguez isn't even old. I feel like he's in every single village.
And good for Dominguez because he came up and everybody wanted to doubt that dude, and he hit 2 bombs in Houston.
Look at the Yankees letting the kids play. Pereira, Dominguez, they're all.
It's about time. But Yankees checklist. Yankees are going to be probably your third most expensive team. They're going on 6 autos, not including rookie autos from Volpe, and then Invicta autos from Volpe and Roger Arias, who we spoke about a little earlier, and then Ascension autos from Peraza. Do have an auto for the AFL Stars from Dominguez. So they have a lot of chases, but we're focusing on prospects. Let's start with your guys. We're talking about Brandon Mayea.
Mayea.
Can I just...
Should be an I then.
I think I only exist really. Yeah. Like I know I've got the scouting background. I think I only exist to get the conversation off topic. Have you?
I mean, all podcasts need someone like you.
And hope maybe we can get a graphic of this on the sell sheet. Have you seen the JDOM AFL relic card?
No.
I'll pop if they're watching on YouTube. I'll pop it up.
It's awesome.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, there are some. They have iconic cards. I don't know if you've seen the Trout iconic is on the sell sheet. I think the design.
Yeah,
looks
that card is cool.
I think they're doing a good job, honestly. But yes, I will pop it up on the YouTube. Noted. But let's talk about Brando. Sorry,
both.
Right?
He goes by both.
Brando is more fun. we go with Brando. Landman, hit me with Brando because we do have other Yankees. We have a Kiner Delgado, which we'll talk about shortly. But let's hear about Brando. I'm never calling him Brando, by the way. Moving forward.
Actually, I was more. I thought you were going to go with Kiner, but I know he's not the higher prospect. But Brando is the more exciting guy. Not a big guy, 5'11", 175, but he projects to have above average, maybe plus hit and power. Really fast, very slick fielder. Maybe a better player. In fantasy baseball, you hear the term better IRL, in real life player, because he's got everything you really look for. But it's more 50 to 55 grade across the board. Not a ton of power so far, because again, he's 17, he's 5'11", not a big guy. Good doesn't really take big hacks, not chasing the junk. 13% walk rate versus 16% strikeout. So that's kind of what we were talking about. It's a good walk rate, but it's a good strikeout rate. And that's what I like to see. Stole 22 bases. It's just a good player. I think he's just got the tools across the board to get it done. Working with what we've got, I know he's the higher touted guy. Maybe sexier, just not for me as interesting as Delgado. If that makes
So I like Delgado a lot. So we can transition a little Delgado, then Bobby, I'll let you take on both. Delgado's stats to me stand out substantially more. I like what he brings to the table way more. Not way more, but more. Forget OBP. Over 400, doing well. But he's hitting home runs and he's stealing bases. In only 198 at-bats this year, 8 jacks, 31 RBIs, 36 stolen bases. In his career, over 350 at-bats, 11 home runs. So he actually has shown more power recently than in the past. But he has 70 stolen bases, which is pretty even, 35 and 35 essentially. And his OBP's gone down, and his average has gone down a little bit this year. Not much, but he's a 300 hitter across about 360 at-bats. I just like that. I like the profile that he's giving. I think the Yankees have 2 really, really good chases, which is sort of exciting. And they have the backup chases that we've been talking about all episode in the rookies, in the Jason Dominguez. Jason Dominguez are inserts, but Jason Dominguez sells because Jason Dominguez mashes. So, like, as just a prospect, we're talking about Delgado, we're talking about Brando, and then there's 4 others that we haven't even mentioned that you could hit. These 2 I love. I really do. The Yankees have done, as much as the Yankees sign talent, they have not done a bad job at producing talent either. And people get lost in that with the Yankees. They remember the Garrett Cole signings. They remember those flashy moves, even like DJ LeMahieu. Like, they remember those, but they don't remember, like, Judge was brought up. Like, there's a lot, Volpe brought up and really good. Even Gary Sanchez, I know people, he had a resurgence at one point this year. He was good for a while for the Yankees. And so the Yankees do something right. They're crazy, but they do have a great mix of spending money and drafting well, or signing, international prospects well and producing them. I mean, they're the East Coast Dodgers, or you can call the Dodgers the West Coast Yankees, whatever you want to say. I think the Dodgers do it a little better. That could be because, they got Tampa Bay Ray management in their system now, and everyone knows how the Rays do. I like Delgado a lot. I can't afford to chase Delgado probably, but I like him, so I might do some randoms and hope I land there.
Well, I don't know if, Bob, you have anything to say on Delgado, because, again, it's very limited. So the information that I have is really just, I'm going to give a shout out to Fangraphs because it's not anything original from me. But Bob, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I like them. I like them both. I'm kind of in the same place that you are, where you look at the data and you want to make Delgado higher, but Maye is the sexy name. He was the big signing. He's got, he's going to be the bigger chase 100%. In this product. Delgado's interesting. He doesn't have scout grades on Fangraphs. He's kind of very under the radar. The only knock I would have against him is that, he's in the complex league and he's 19. I would have liked, I like to see the, Dominican Summer League at 17, complex at 18. So I'm not saying he's a year behind, but as far as guys that I like to look for, he is. But the numbers are crazy. I mean, you look at the DSL numbers from last year, a 24.4% walk rate to an 11.8% K rate, 178 WRC plus. And I mean, these are 50 game samples from Dominican Summer League and Complex League. It's not, that's not that small of a sample. It's, a couple hundred at bats at least. WRC plus is 138 this year. Like you said, home runs, the power's coming on. He hit 8 home runs already this year. He's only 5'7", but I mean, the ISO numbers are good. The speed numbers are good. He seems really sneaky. He might fly under the radar a little bit.
And so I'm going to make one apology that I caught on my own. Landman, myself, and Bobby all have both of these prospects. I don't know why I said otherwise. I'm looking down. I'm no, Landman, you did have Delgado. You were not missing him. And I did have Brando. I was not missing him. So we both like him, just in different orders. But I love the secondary chase. That's just sort of my thing in these kind of products. It's the same. Xavier Isaac was similar. When the Angels were releasing 23 Bowman, Randy DeJesus was the chase for the Angels for a quick minute, and it flipped to Rada very quickly. I love that stuff. I think that's the fun of the chase. I think that's like the lotto card per se. That sort of does it. But what else do we have to say about the Yankees? Because it's a fun checklist. They're not going to be cheap. It's a long checklist. It's gonna be a bitch for me to package up the Yankees in a case break. I won't lie, because there's no paper in Bowman Chrome. That is Bowman Chrome hobby cases, which I'm doing a lot of, are somewhat of a breaker's nightmare. Like, there's no way to make it a smaller break because you can't say paper doesn't ship, because there is none. So like, you're just sorting everything. But what else about the Yankees? I know we could talk about the Yankees for a while. Probably we don't want to, but we can.
No, well, it's fun to talk about the Yankees. I mean, when they're good, baseball is exciting. Like, I mean, it's put away your bias.
Yeah.
They're the gold standard, and it gets more people engaged, whether or not you like them, you hate them, you're indifferent towards them. It's just more excitement in the air when those good teams, or those like out of nowhere teams, like those are for me, that's the fun of baseball. Like when you have that buzz around the field. But no, Delgado is, and again, I just wanted to throw this in there. It's not my comp, but I think it's a great comp. That's why I'm bringing it up. Is Delgado, both in size and the actual swing with the leg kick, Altuve.
Yeah,
Switch hitting Altuve.
Which is crazy.
So he doesn't project to have a lot of power, but neither did Altuve, and we just saw what he did yesterday, tonight, or whatever, both.
Over the last two games, or I guess last night.
I'm going to my first Rangers games in a couple weeks, and games plural.
Is it Houston?
And I'm hoping they'll be in the hunt at the time, so it'll be that, like I said, that much more fun of an atmosphere. But the way things are going,
we will be talking about the Rangers in a few weeks, and it is one of the ultimate fall aparts that I've seen in a while. Forget the Angels; everyone can make fun of me, but they went for it too, and it just is not working out. But we will talk about that.
We can say that for another time. You know how I feel. I always thought this was the 2023 version of the last year's Baltimore Orioles, but the Baltimore Orioles didn't go all in. So,
dude, it's hard. So I'm gonna do a quick note because we talked about Basallo. The other Baltimore Oriole in this is Frederick Benscombe. He is an auto only. He was in 23 Bowman. I know a few people are chasing him. Good prospect. I just want people to know that he's an auto only. We don't need to dive deep into him, but
Joey Ortiz is confirmed. Baltimore on here too.
And Joey Ortiz, I believe, is a rookie card plus a first in the set. If I'm not like, it's a weird. There's a weird thing going on with Ortiz from what I read.
At his age, he's probably got a vet card and a first Bowman.
So what we're gonna do now is we don't have a ton of people left, and we don't want to keep you guys forever. But I'm gonna talk about one dude, and then I'm gonna let other guys take over and shoot it over to them. But I'm gonna talk about Houston. We just talked about Altuve. I'm gonna talk a little about Houston. I'm gonna talk about Kennedy Corona. He is also an auto only guy, but I like him a lot. I don't know why I like him a lot. I should hate him because I don't like the team. I don't like the organization. Outfielder for the Houston Astros. I look at this dude. I actually think he has our most data. He has over 1,000 at bats in minor league. He steals bases really well. He hits home runs, but like, he doesn't do anything amazing. In just this year, 434 at bats, 22 home runs, which is pretty big, but 62 RBIs. But RBIs are more of a team stat to me. 30 stolen bases, so he's a 20-20 guy, 30-30 guy waiting to happen in minor league. 260 average. You hope that gets a little better, and an on base of 334. Again, I'd like to see that in like the 380 to 420 range. But I think Houston is a sneaky team in this set because they also have Melton, who might be an auto-only guy as well, if I'm not mistaken.
And it won't be the first because he's a draft guy.
Correct. So Houston's an interesting one. They're not the cheapest chase, but I sort of like them. I like them for their value. So they have Melton auto, they have Corona auto, they have Kenny Gomez auto, and they have Luke Berry Hill auto. So looking at 4 autos.
That Camilo
and
Diaz.
they have Diaz's auto. Yeah, he was the one I was missing. 5 autos, and none of them seem to be horrible like prospects, relatively speaking. They're gonna be you get them for 120, whatever the price may be. If I'm not mistaken, I have Houston at 150 right now. They're one of the ones that I could see coming down over a period of time, but also I can see them going up just because if these players start to hit, you got 5 autos, and you've got an organization also that tends to develop within. They're not big signing teams. They're not massive in the trade market, except for deadline deals to make some moves. I like him. I think he's got good potential. Those are my guys. Landman, you got a few guys that we haven't really touched on. Is there someone you feel compelled, folks? This is who you should be chasing. He's under the radar. We got Tidwell, we got Brailer, we got Sam, we got crazy names, but we got all these guys. Who are you? Landman does not want to give out his secrets, but who are you chasing this year? Let's do that. Let's do the simplest way.
Have you locked me into my number 1 chase?
I have a chat with you and him, and he has agreed that you get a case and he gets a case. We will figure out which case gets who, but yes, you are locked in. Arias, he is chasing. I'm going to out him right now. The Giants, they are affordable and they have a high upside. So, outside of Arias, because we've outed your number 1 chase,
well,
who else piques your interest?
I mean, we talked about like probably my top 5, which we can maybe even do like later, but well, screw it. We'll do it now. Salas, Vargas, Basallo, Celestin, Arias. That's my top 5. But there's a lot of fun names, and I'll just kind of throw them out there. Again, I like pitchers. There's some interesting guys that you might be able to get cheap. Wilkeman Gonzalez for Boston. Gordon Graceffo for St. Louis.
Great name, by the way, people. Great name. I mean, come on.
And another actual Cardinals pitcher you will not get them for the Cardinals because he was on Toronto is Sam Roberts so it's a Toronto guy. He was in the Jordan Hicks trade. So if you want to chase him, you have to have the Blue Jays. But he's an interesting guy. Shouldn't be expensive. Just a we'll see guy. I mean, we're talking sleepers here. Yosver Zuleta, also at Toronto. 25 years old, AAA relief pitcher. It's not going to be a hobby chase, but he's going to be a really fun player. Plus fastball, not much in the way of control. Brailer Guerrero for Tampa Bay. It's 23 at bats so far, so we're shooting in the dark a little bit. But I think 1, the organization, but 2, I kind of like the player himself. But it's not going to be a top chase. He could be a fun guy, and Tampa has that track record, so he could be a really good one. Tidwell, another pitcher who's crushing it for the Mets. And this is going to be kind of a unique one. It's not a great hobby market, and he's already debuted. But it's kind of hard to just not mention what Zach Geloff is doing for the Oakland A's.
I am big on Geloff in a weird, he is just doing everything that no one expected. Like, everyone knows who's good, but he's doing every tool across the board at above baseball average levels, and it's not slowing down.
Yeah, I mean, he's striking out a lot, and I always thought he had the power, but he's stealing a lot of bases, and I don't think it's necessarily fluky because he's got the average speed, but it plays up because of the baseball IQ.
Yes. I agree. I'm with him. And so, we've got Bob. I believe we talked about most of you guys. The only one we haven't talked about is Luis Guanipa. I believe I said that right.
Yeah.
Right? You guys, come on. I'm on a roll with some of these names for me. If you want to hear me butcher more names, at BD Kleinman, I will have some breaks going live. I've got no shame in that, guys. I know the players' names just ain't my thing. I'm going to own it, and I'm good with that. So talk about. I know he's the last one. So tell me about him. Why is he on your list? I know it's sort of out of order, so he's in your top 15. We'll call it at this point.
He's going to be.
Have some fun.
I might be high man on him, but I am a little bit biased. He is an Atlanta Braves prospect. He's going to be a top 10 chase for me. I am very intrigued. He has a very, like Land talked about with Maia, where it's kind of like a small sample, but it's like where like the hit tool, it might be above average. The power might be above average. You know, it's a lot of like questions. Guanipa's kind of the same way. He came out the first month of the season and he looked like Ronald Acuna. I mean, we were like, this is the guy. And then he went a month where he couldn't hit the baseball. So you don't really know, but I saw the tools for that 1 month, and that was enough to give me like a glimpse of like what it could be. Whether he puts it all together or not is a question, but just like Maia, he could have above average hit tool and power. And I think he's got maybe plus speed. I mean, the guy can move. I think that if he finds a way to cut out these slumps, I don't know if he was hurt or if it was just, something else. But what I saw from him in that first month, the tools are enough to where I think that he should be catapulted up boards. And if not, then, maybe I'll stash a couple sleepers in myself. I hope that he starts out cheap.
And
so,
right, and
yeah, go.
That's
Take
a good point, and that's really something to consider when we look at somebody like Rainer Arias. Where it's like, wow, like look at those numbers. I don't care what level of baseball you're at. People go through hot and cold streaks. So you have a hot 2 weeks, a hot month. You're gonna have another. That's the great part of baseball is it all comes into focus after 162 games. So yeah, you need more data, but it's fun to get excited about guys like that. But let's see. So that's why we're not touting Arias as the next Julio Rodriguez because it's 16 games. Like,
yeah, the
first 16 games of this season, I think Guanipa was batting over 300 and had a few home runs and a bunch of stolen bases, and then he went a month where he batted under 200. So it's like you're just rolling the dice, and it was kind of like what we touched on it with Ryan Clifford. How we saw him as two different players. And when you see two different things, you're almost just kind of like, well, I'm going to rank him this high because I know that I've seen this and I've seen this. And if he can bring those together, it's going to be special. And that's kind of how I feel about Luis Guanipa. Like if he can figure out how to do that for longer than a month, I think that he could be really special. And it's really just a dice roll if he can or not.
Yeah. And this is not a knock on Guanipa too, because I just think he's very exciting as well. It's the fun or why people hate this product because it is such limited data. It's such unique data. It's not like anything you can compare to directly. I mean, there are some people who have a better track record than others, but the average person or even professionals, like it's a crapshoot, and that's what Bowman Chrome is. It's a little bit of a crapshoot, but it's a cheaper crapshoot. You get these guys you can get in on a little bit cheaper on the whole, not just you have to pick up, well, there's one team that I can roll the dice on. There's value on these teams. You just don't know how they're going to pan out. So do your homework, go for your team, go for your players, and just have fun with it.
100%. I couldn't agree more. So we'll leave it at this. I want to hear a shocking chase for you guys in a team-wise. In a weird way, I was looking at my pricing sheet, and I sent it to both of you, so you have it. This is a case break of Bowman Hobby. Again, 24 autos, but this is a bunch of color, a bunch of inserts, all that kind of fun stuff. I like the Marlins. I'm going to say it out loud. I don't know if that's going to hold up, but I like the Marlins. I like they've got Vargas, who's now a Met. They got a good checklist when it comes to auto count, and they're going to be in that third to fourth tier. They're going to be 100 to 150, give or take, which, for people to understand, there's probably 5 or 6 teams that are under 100, and that's teams we haven't even talked about today. The Chicago White Sox have nothing in this set, basically. The Cubs, blank. So when I say $100, it sounds like a lot, and I'm not laughing at it, but like it's not. The Cardinals don't really have anybody. They do have one, but it's obviously the Blue Jays, and you're only chasing Jordan Walker, which is going to be rare. And the Giants is only because they literally only have one auto, essentially, and the Pirates. Those are the teams under 100. And I don't think they really have
it just occurred to me, I want to go ahead and clarify. We're talking about, and I know we are, but to clarify to the people listening, we're talking about a case break.
A case. We're talking 12 boxes. So 12 boxes is 24 mini boxes. because it's 12 master boxes as the setup is, and each mini box is an auto. So it's 24 mini boxes. It's a lot of cards. It's a good amount of cards. And so I look at like the Marlins as you've got one or two guys that have pretty good upside on the sales market and as a prospect market, and then you've got 3 or 4 or 5. Sit on them. Let it simmer. You know, it's the Dylan Dodd for me. Dylan Dodd wasn't a great prospect, but I pulled his card. I sat on it. He came up to the played amazing, sold it, and then he ballooned and bye-bye. But like the Marlins to me are like that, not bottom tier where like you're not pulling a big card on the White Sox. I love the White Sox fans. That's one of my top 5 teams because I got a lot of family in Chicago. But like unless you are a White Sox PC dude, you're not buying the White Sox. I feel probably about the same about the Cubs. Sorry, Chicago. I love you guys, but it's just not happening in this release. Marlins are my guys right now. I don't like the way they develop talent usually, but I think they have some fun chases. Landman, is there anyone off the radar that you would recommend? You might not chase him because your chases are the Giants we've talked about already. There's someone else that, you know, you want to out a little bit like, hey, look here, guys, it's worth it.
Yeah, no, 2 things before I answer that question. Let's tap the brakes on the Dylan Dodd talk because Bob's just shooting daggers at you. I don't want this podcast to keep going.
I made my money. I'm good.
One of the many Braves arms we've just apparently we're just gonna rotate that 5th rotation spot. It's Dodd, and then it's Schuster, and then it's AJ Smith-Shawver, and then it's Soroka, and then it's a moving door, revolving door.
Here's the thing: I can insult the Braves as much as I want, but they're the best team in baseball. So say what I want. They are on a track to win another World Series, and they're signed to their players for a long time, and they're young, and they're relatively healthy. Like, Dylan Dodd made me money. I'm not complaining. But he is that dude where it's like, I got low color. I think it was gold, if I'm not mistaken. Put it in a top loader, throw it in the corner. Dude comes up. I think his first 3 games was like 2 hits, 7 hits, 5 hits, like no runs. His base was going for like 70 all of a sudden as a pitcher. And I was like, I got to move this. And then I think the start after I moved it, he gave up 6 runs in 3 innings and like never saw the mound again, essentially. And so you're going to get a lot of that, though, because these are so unknown that like a hot streak in the minor leagues, especially in the pitching, because pitchers move up quicker, it seems, these days. They could just move them. They could just move them up pretty quickly. Dodd was obviously a little different. He felt older as well. But Landman, who else are you looking at? I mean, you know, obviously, let's forget the Yankees. Let's forget the Padres. Let's forget the Dodgers. Let's forget those tier 1, 2. Is there a sneaky team you like?
So the answer to this question and most questions in life is it depends. So I'm looking at your pricing sheet, and not to pimp you out, because as much as I'm a big supporter and fan, and you're in my Mount Rushmore of breakers, I'm going to give you credit. You know, it doesn't benefit me to have more people to compete against, but the Dodgers, like, I'm looking at this, like, that's too low. But
the Dodgers could be sold out already.
Okay, well, then that saved me money, I guess. I did notice the Giants went up a little bit, but just a little bit, and it's probably better than anywhere else. So as long as I'm locked in, we're good. But the Guardians.
Wait, to be honest, hold on. I'm gonna get this on the podcast. The first set I sent to Landman, I think it said $40, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe $50. And then I looked more into Arias, and that was the bump. I was like, okay, they don't have anything, but they have a really good guy. He's not Churios, so he's not going to be it's not a $200 chase. Yeah, but they do have a really good hit, and his base will sell for somewhere in that range, is my guess, if not a little more. And that's where the bump was. It was I did not look into Arias enough on that first sheet. And I let Kenny influence me a little too much, like, the Giants suck. And I'm like, okay, let me look at Arias is a ball.
I might have DM'd Kenny to tell him it's not as bad as he thinks it is. I probably shouldn't have done that, but there's no filter on me. You're going to hear who I like.
Which is what we love about you.
But in terms of non-Dodgers and Giants team, just looking at this list, the Guardians flat out. I mean, just bells are going off.
That's what I was going to say. I didn't say Marlins. I was going to say Guardians. Bobby, who you looking at? Let's hear. I want to hear a little from you then. Who, I know Landman loves breaks. Where are you in the breaker world? I know you've been in a break or two. I've seen you dabble. Are you more of a singles guy or a personal rip
singles
guy?
And personal rip. I don't really do breaks. I'll hop in every now and then when, I see a product that I like and, I want to chase something big. But yeah, I usually buy my own singles for the most part.
And so if you were to buy a break, take out tier one. Anyone that stands out.
I'm going to go down the list a little bit, and I'm going to throw a little wild card at you because the team doesn't have.
I'm changing my prices as we speak.
The team doesn't have a player that's in any of our top 15s, but they actually have two players that are in my 15 to 20 range. So I think they're kind of like a sneaky low end option, and that's the Philadelphia Phillies. They have Carlos. They have Carlos De La Cruz, who isn't my cup of tea. I'm sure he's not Land's either. But there's going to be people who are chasing him. I don't know if you've ever seen him, but he is a legit 6'8". He makes Ellie De La Cruz look like me. He is a monster, and he's got potentially 70, 80 raw power potential, but the hit tool is very questionable. But he's in Double A this year, and the strikeout rate's down. WRC plus is solid. He's a huge guy, going to hit a lot of home runs. I think he might be someone that the hobby likes just because he can hit. And then you also have another guy named Brian Rincon, who they drafted, who is a 19-year-old shortstop. And he's kind of in the same boat, but he's in the same boat, but on the other side of it. He's more of a hit and speed guy and doesn't have the power. But he's already in high A as a 19-year-old. And earlier this year, before he got, brought up to high A, he was in low A. And through 81 games, he had 8 home runs. And I mean, this is a guy who was projected 30 power by the scouts. So 8 home runs in 81 games, 23 stolen bases, 17% walk rate to 18% K rate. He's just like a sneaky guy. If that power, he's not projected to be a power guy, but if that power that he's tapping into is legit, I think that he's a guy who could sneakily move up after. So I think him and De La Cruz, neither of them are, guys that I love, but for the price point of how cheap the Phillies are going to be, I think they're two guys that you could hold and just, De La Cruz could get called up, any second if the Phillies have an opening in the outfield, So I think that they're kind of a sneaky team.
And Rincon is an auto only chase.
Rincon is, yeah.
Yes, he's an auto only chase in the set. Honestly, as a breaker, because I'm the only breaker, obviously, of the three of us, I struggle with the Phillies. I had them at 130 or 140.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be super popular just because they don't have that one name that people are going to go after
to start. And then I started picking a few people's brains, and everything I was hearing was they're good, but they're not great. And so the way I look at it is you find that average price of what you want them, and that average price for the case was 150, give or take, a team. And now you got to find the teams that are below that line and the teams that are going to push above that line to make it economical for everybody. And the Phillies, I had at that line, and over time, as I picked brains like you and others, they seem to go below.
Be below average.
But they have the splash.
Yeah, I think they should be below average price wise. But yeah, they're
and they will be. They will be.
Correct me if you've heard this before, but they also have a pitcher.
Oh,
wait, we
pitchers.
The last 2 names on my sleeper list, I didn't translate those to my top chase kind of guys or interesting guys, were De La Cruz and Griff McGarry, who in 4 1/3 innings at AAA this year, he just got promoted, has a 41.54 ERA. So
that's good, right? That's sort of like WAR plus or WAR.
Yeah, it's in golf you want a low score. This isn't golf. This is baseball.
Yeah, I was interested to see. I was hoping kind of that Land would have Carlos De La Cruz on his list just because I wanted to see him his approach on that hit tool.
The hit tool's bad, and we were talking about guys with power, and he's one of the only guys on my list. But him and Basallo were the power guys. I mean, there are other guys, but for me, those were the 2 I think with the best power tools. But McGarry, 3+ pitches, absolutely no idea where it's going. If it clicks, maybe he's a really good relief pitcher, or maybe he starts, but probably not going to happen. But it's a good arsenal. Just a 41.
And they're second, third tier, fourth tier for the Phillies, and they're cheap. So like that's a fun chase. That's sort of what you're going for. Look, you never want to get into a break and you end up with no autos. Like even if you get a bad auto, at least you're like, oh, okay, I got an auto, and then you have someone to root for. It's like making that $5 bet on the Super Bowl. Like you don't care about the two teams, but you put 5 on someone, and now you've got a horse in the race, and that's sort of what gives you a horse.
Speaking of horse racing, I'd say it's more akin to betting win, play, show.
100%.
We're going to, no, well, hey, I got McGarry, I got my money back.
Right? So that's 23 Bowman Chrome. We're excited. Release date is September 13th. You're going to see some people probably opening it on the 12th, maybe even the 11th. It will not be me. I will not do that. But some
if
will,
my pre-orders
I'm sure.
come, I will. Don't worry.
Oh, you got them top. There's not a chance you do. If my pre-orders,
You know what makes me so mad is
my case breaks. I will not. I would have gotten my shipping label from the.
You know what makes me so mad is that like so many releases that I did pre-orders, but Bowman, it was so delayed on getting the pre-orders out, and then 2023 Bowman was the first product that I was like, I'm not ordering this, and everyone got theirs like a week in advance, and I was like, God, I hate you guys. They're gonna do it.
And then you have to get in now.
They're gonna do it to me again.
Like reality is, if they're getting boxes to people in time, we need to be getting shipping notifications tomorrow or Friday. Like that's just like I'm not going to get it because they ship from Florida. There's a 0% chance I get it. I will get my cases.
They ship
most likely,
from Florida. I'm gonna show up there
for my breaks.
take my boxes by hand.
Hey, I showed up at PSA today with a beautiful Gunner Super. So do it. They'll let you in. But that's 23 Bowman Chrome. Super excited about it. Obviously, we say it's the baby sister, the baby brother of the Bowman world. To me, Draft reigns supreme. Chrome is Bowman's right underneath, and then Chrome third. But that is a strong third place. I enjoy this more than almost any other release. Finest Flashback should be coming out soon. We just had Cosmic, which people got very excited about. And if you haven't seen, jump on my profile because the stuff that was hit by the Union Breakers was absolutely bonkers. We had another Corbin Carroll auto tonight and a Corbin Carroll Mercury card. So some great stuff, but pumped about Bowman Chrome. It's Bowman season. We're Bowman hunting. We are going to come back to you normal next podcast. We're still going to try to drop it on Tuesday. We're coming with third baseman. I played a little third baseman growing up. I love third baseman. Adam does not know why we're not going to short first, but I like to play the double play territory, and third base goes next. First, second, third, short. I don't know why it's been the way I talk about it, but it is. But the next 2 weeks are going to be great. I mean, third baseman, shortstop's really fun. Outfield's going to be overwhelming, I think. It's going to be another, we're at 2 hours right now. Outfield might be another long episode, and pitchers could be as well, depending on how we break it up. But we appreciate you guys. Check out the polls on Spotify. Answer them, interact. If you guys have any questions, any suggestions, anything, at BD Kleinman, at Big Bob's Cards, and at Landman113. Ask away. We are open books. Or at ATN_prospect. We'll hit all three of us at once if you're feeling, efficient. We appreciate you guys. Good luck in the chases. We hope you all hit the supers that Adam doesn't want because he needs to hit those. Enjoy the Bowman chase.